Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please come on into the room. I'm delighted to welcome you to the 26th NDM-UN. Please come on in. Great. This year, I'm really pleased to say that we are co-hosting and co-organizing this annual meeting with our colleagues from the Geneva International Center for Humanitarian Demining. And I'm excited to be sharing the podium with Ambassador Stefano Toscano, well known to all of you, I'm sure. I'm also very happy to extend our thanks, as always, to the government of Switzerland, which again is generously supporting this year's meeting. Before we get started, and as you all come in and take your seats, I'd like to invite you to stand for a moment and observe a moment of silence while we honor the victims of explosive ordnance, men, women, children, sometimes our colleagues, affected communities, peacekeepers, humanitarian workers. Thank you. Thank you. Let's take our seats. And the meeting is now officially open. And I would like to move straight into our high-level speakers. So please, Ms. Tatiana Valovia, I'm going to introduce you and ask you to come up to the podium. Of course, Ms. Valovia is the Director General of the UN office in Geneva. This is our disarmament and humanitarian hub, and that is why UNMAS has a footprint here in the Palais. Thank you so much for hosting us there and for giving us a bit of your time this morning. Director General, over to you.
It works. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, it is my great pleasure to open this year's meeting of Mine Action National Directors and UN advisors. I would like to express my gratitude to Switzerland for steadfastly supporting international cooperation and mine action globally. I also thank UNMAS for organizing this meeting in close collaboration with members of the UN Interagency Cooperative Group on Mine Action, the Geneva International Center for Humanitarian Demining, and other partners. Thanks to all of you for your continued commitment to this highly important cause. Finally, I would like to express my appreciation to the World Meteorological Organization for hosting this meeting while we renovate the Palais des Nations. Mine action has become a nexus between peace and security, humanitarian action and development, as well as a cornerstone for conflict prevention. In this regard, the UN conducts various activities and operations aimed at reducing the threat of explosive ordnance. Effective international legal instruments, such as the Anti-Personal Mine Ban Convention or the Ottawa Treaty Convention on Cluster Munitions and the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, provide a solid framework for advancing this work and achieving important milestones. Since its adoption 26 years ago, the Ottawa Treaty helped in destroying over 55 million stockpiled anti-personnel mines and clearing of vast areas of contaminated land. The achievements are undeniable, but challenges remain as millions of people still live in areas contaminated by explosives. Every day, mines threaten lives, curtail freedom of movement, limit access to land, and instill fear and insecurity in the communities. To quote the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, broader global efforts are essential to safeguard people from mines. We must continue to strive for the universalization and full implementation of applicable legal instruments to prevent further human suffering and to advance sustainable development. Here in Geneva, The reminder about mines victims is positioned squarely in front of our eyes. Broken chair at the Place de Nation, a symbol against the use of anti-personnel mines and explosives. In April, we celebrated the International Day for Mine Awareness and Assistance in Mine Action, which was a part of the campaign Mine Action Cannot Wait. And this overall theme is in the focus of this meeting today and tomorrow. I wish you a successful meeting to further address the challenges facing the mine action sector, and I hope to welcome you back to the Palais de Nation next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Director General. Thanks for your support for our work and for your time and for reminding us of the importance of strengthened collaboration across this sector. It's now my honor to introduce His Excellency Ambassador Thomas Gerber, Deputy State Secretary, Federal Department of Foreign Affairs of Switzerland. Switzerland, of course, has long demonstrated its commitment to this sector. Supporting this meeting is just one small a token of that commitment. And another is the reception that you hosted yesterday with the German presidency of the Mine Ban Treaty. Thank you for that. And of course, we as UNMAS benefit from the support of Switzerland directly, including in-kind personnel, which we greatly appreciate. And we're very happy that you're on the Security Council supporting mine action across all of the peacekeeping and special political missions and other topics that come onto the Council's agenda where mine action is important. So thank you very much. And Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Madame la directrice générale, Monsieur le sous-secrétaire général, Madame la directrice, Monsieur le directeur, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs. En tant que représentant de l'État hôte, c'est avec grand plaisir que je vous souhaite la bienvenue ici à Genève. Nous sommes particulièrement honorés d'accueillir une fois encore la réunion annuelle des directeurs nationaux de lutte anti-mine des Nations Unies, en particulier au regard des nombreux défis que nous devons encore relever dans ce domaine. Je voudrais tout d'abord remercier les co-organisateurs de cette réunion, donc le service de l'action anti-mine des Nations Unies et le Centre international de déminage humanitaire de Genève. Nous tenons à saluer cette fructueuse collaboration entre ces deux organisations essentielles au secteur de l'action anti-mine, travaillant sans relâche en faveur des pays affectés depuis plus de 25 ans. Je tiens donc à remercier tout particulièrement la directrice d'UNMAS, Madame Eileen Cohn, et le directeur du GICT, l'ambassadeur Stefano Toscano, pour leur engagement sans faille. Nous nous félicitons que cette importante réunion qui rassemble les principaux représentants des États, des organisations internationales et de la société civile internationale ait lieu sous votre codirection. Ensemble, nous partageons un objectif commun, mettre fin aux souffrances et aux pertes en vie humaine causées par les mines et autres engins explosifs, tout comme porter assistance à ceux qui ont été touchés par ces armes. La Suisse reste fermement engagée dans la réalisation de cet objectif. L'une de nos 4 priorités pour le Conseil de sécurité, où la Suisse siège actuellement, est la protection de la population civile. La lutte anti-mine en fait partie. À l'occasion de la Journée internationale de la lutte anti-mine du 4 avril 2023, la Suisse a lancé son nouveau plan d'action de la lutte anti-mine de 2023 à 2026. La Suisse poursuit ainsi son engagement de longue date. Outre un appui particulier à la mise en œuvre des conventions pertinentes pour la lutte anti-mine et le soutien à la dépollution des zones contaminées, le plan d'action prend également en compte les opportunités offertes par la par les approches innovantes, comme par exemple l'utilisation de nouvelles technologies pour un déminage efficace, effectif et sûr. Par ailleurs, la Suisse apportera un soutien à de nombreux pays avec un engagement de grande envergure pour l'Ukraine, au vu des défis actuels. L'agression militaire de la Russie contre l'Ukraine débouche sur une contamination massive par les mines, les armes à sous-munitions et autres engins explosifs. Ceci constitue un danger imminent pour la population civile et entrave l'accès aux infrastructures essentielles. Cette nouvelle contamination nous rappelle que nous sommes loin d'avoir atteint la dernière ligne droite en matière de déminage humanitaire. Nous nous devons de poursuivre nos efforts, voire de les redoubler. Mine action cannot wait, comme l'indique à juste titre le thème de cette réunion aujourd'hui. Chers collègues, je suis certain que la réunion qui commence aujourd'hui contribuera à ce que le secteur anti-mine continue dans ce sens. Elle constitue une occasion unique pour un large éventail de praticiens de l'action anti-mine de se réunir, de discuter des défis qu'ils rencontrent et d'avancer dans l'identification des meilleures pratiques. Nous tenons à saluer la teneur du programme de notre réunion qui permet de traiter à la fois de questions cardinales comme la lutte contre les mines dans sa globalité, les droits des survivants ou bien la perspective environnementale, mais aussi d'aspects cruciaux plus techniques. La thématique de l'innovation, par exemple, ou comment œuvrer encore mieux pour permettre des solutions durables pour les personnes déplacées. À la lumière de ces éléments, l'ancrage de notre réunion à Genève est particulièrement approprié et opportun. La ville de la paix réunit les acteurs à la fois du désarmement et de l'humanitaire. La Genève internationale offre donc les conditions particulièrement propices, je dirais, à la réussite de cette rencontre. Permettez donc de souligner une fois encore combien la Suisse est honorée d'accueillir cette réunion et de pouvoir contribuer à sa réalisation. Madame la directrice générale, Madame la directrice, Monsieur le directeur, Excellences, chers collègues, je vous souhaite toutes et tous des échanges productifs et fructueux pendant ces 2 jours. Merci beaucoup de votre attention.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Gerber. We will certainly be continuing our cooperation with Switzerland in Geneva and New York and in the field. And now I'd like to turn to ASG Zuev, Assistant Secretary General for Rule of Law and Security Institutions in the Department of Peace Operations. ASG Zuev, over to you.
Good morning, bonjour à tout le monde. Je veux parler en anglais, mais tout de même, alors à Genève, parfois, c'est très bon d'utiliser mon français. Alors, Excellencies, colleagues, and dear friends, I am delighted to join you today for the 26th meeting of Mine Action National Directors Week and Week of United Nations Mine Action Advisors. I would like, first of all, to thank the government of Switzerland for all engagement and immense support to this meeting. We are very grateful for your leadership and partnership globally and in Geneva, of course. As in the previous years, this meeting is a great platform for mine action sector to have an open exchange of ideas, successes, and challenges. I am grateful for all support of so many donors and partners to make this possible. This year, the NDM is co-organized and co-hosted by the United Nations Interagency Coordination Group on Mine Action and the Geneva International Center for Humanitarian Demining. And I am grateful for all efforts to convene this important event. This year theme, as it was just mentioned by Deputy Secretary of State Gruber, its main action cannot wait, reflects the urgency of our collective efforts. As the agenda shows, this year NDM promises to be very inspiring and informative. Mine action enables humanitarian development and peace-building activities. And from my perspective as the head of Office of Rule of Law and Security Institutions in the Department of Peace Operations, I particularly appreciate the synergies between mine action, United Nations policing, DDR, security sector reform, and the rule of law agendas. These sectors work in tandem to support peace operations around the world. And our UNMAS colleagues work with DDR to destroy small arms, with the UN police and justice colleagues on post-blast investigations and training of national security sector personnel to mitigate the threats of improvised explosive devices. I would like to commend all of you for your achievements and wish you every success in this very important and very often dangerous work. Now it's with great pleasure I introduce Mr. Jean-Pierre Lacroix, UN Under-Secretary General for Peace Operations, who is at the same time, as you know, the chair of the UN Interagency Coordination Group on Mine Action. And Jean-Pierre just has shared with us his video message, so please kindly direct your attention to the screen.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, warm greetings to everyone. 26th meeting on Mine Action National Directors and UN Advisors. I thank the government of Switzerland for sponsoring this event and commend UNMAS and the Geneva International Center for Humanitarian Demining for co-organizing and co-chairing this signature annual meeting. As a sector and as individual professionals, you are impacting the lives and livelihoods of millions of people. You are protecting civilians caught up in armed conflict, making it possible for schools, hospitals, roads, and businesses to reopen. You are ensuring that refugees and internally displaced persons can return home safely and advocating for the rights of survivors of explosive ordnance. Mine action is demanding work, but as an enabler of peace, development, and humanitarian action, mine action cannot wait. Peacekeeping, for example, often depends on mine action to deliver its mandate safely, protect civilians, support the extension of state authorities, and enable durable solutions for displaced populations. As we mark the 75th anniversary of United Nations peacekeeping, please join us in the Peace Begins With Me campaign to celebrate the commitment of peacekeepers and the resilience of the communities we serve. Recently, we have seen significant new contamination in Sudan, Ukraine, Yemen, and elsewhere. These contexts further reinforce why mine action cannot wait. You are part of a people-centered sector that is compelled to continuously innovate to meet the needs of those made most vulnerable in conflict. This meeting is an opportunity to learn from each other and to build stronger partnerships among governments, civil society, and the United Nations system. Let's keep the momentum strong as we build a safer, more secure world. I wish you a productive meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ASG, and I'm pleased that we were able to have the message from our Undersecretary General as well. And now I would like to give the floor to my co-host, co-organizer, co-chair, partner and friend, Ambassador Stefano Toscano of the Geneva Center. Over to you.
Merci Aileen et bonjour à toutes et à tous de mon côté aussi. C'est un plaisir de vous voir ici à Genève. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. It's a real pleasure for me to deliver these opening remarks. I hope you all had a good trip and once again, welcome to Geneva. Some of you have been here since the beginning of the week attending the APMBC intersessionals. Let me start by echoing the opening comments by Eileen. I too am sincerely delighted to share the podium with UNMAS and to co-host and co-organize this year's National Director meeting. Madam Director, dear Eileen, thank you for your continued commitment to this important event, and to colleagues both within the United Nations Interagency Coordination Group on Mine Action and the GSEHD for their dedication in organizing this meeting. From designing such an engaging program to managing the numerous logistical issues, most of these tasks, which are essential to making this meeting a success, take place beyond the scenes, but require unfailing commitment and expertise on the part of all involved. A heartfelt thank you to all those who have made this event happen. It is said that teamwork makes the dream work. And I think that this event is a testament to the great cooperation between our two organizations. The National Director meeting has evolved and grown to become one of the most important meetings in the annual Mine Action calendar. Yet it retains much of what it was when it began over a quarter of a century ago. It is still at its core a forum for partners within the mine action sector to come together to share experiences, progress and challenges with the aim of advancing our noble cause. I'd like to call it an event by practitioners for practitioners. This event has been organized for you, dear participants, and I can only encourage you to make the most of the next 2 days. The plenary sessions, the side events, and of course, all the meetings that take place in the margins of the National Director meeting have a single aim: to implement effective, efficient, and sustainable mine action programs for the benefit of the countries and populations affected. The theme of this year's National Director meeting is "Mine Action Cannot Wait." Some might say that, unfortunately, it couldn't be more relevant given the situation we encounter on the ground. The world still faces significant levels of contamination by landmines, cluster munition, and explosive remnants of war, with continuing severe consequences of people's lives and post-conflict stabilization, reconstruction, and long-term development of entire communities. But we must not give up. We cannot afford to give up. Our role is more important than ever today, and we need to redouble our efforts towards our ambition and collective goals. We can't stress it enough. Mine action is also a prerequisite for reconstruction and development, and must be implemented as soon as conditions allow. Without our work to reduce the risk associated with explosive devices, it is simply not possible to lay the foundations for affected communities to even plan their future on their land. The call to better explore connections between explosive ordnance risk reduction and global agendas has become stronger, and rightly so, emphasizing the need to join efforts across different areas of work in the interest of greater efficiency and improved results. This has strengthened efforts to reframe the value of mine action as an enabler of humanitarian efforts, development, and peace, on top, of course, of its immediate humanitarian impact. These next 2 days are all part of that effort, and I very much look forward to all the exchanges that will take place. But as I just said, mine action cannot wait. So it's time for me to conclude these remarks and encourage you to take an active part in the discussions over the next 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefano. So I am not going to repeat the challenges we face. You all know them, and our speakers have so eloquently described them in brief, and I won't reemphasize why mine action cannot wait, but I really must echo what Stefano said about what it takes to put this meeting together. And so instead of waiting until the end to thank my team and Stefano's team, I must thank Abigail and the team that put this together. They did a fantastic job. So let's give a round of applause for them before it even starts. Yeah, it really is a lot of work. So we hope that you'll agree at the end, and we will ask you to give us some feedback on whether this agenda meets your expectations. We sought from you some input through a survey and at the end of last year's meeting. So we hope that topics such as innovations in mine action, support to survivors, liability and land release, mine action and the environment, and how our sector enables other key priorities of the United Nations and your work come together in this agenda. And as I say, I hope that this meets your expectations. And then without ado, I want to move to our keynote speaker. Now, we all know that explosive ordnance continues to fuel displacement, puts vulnerable people at risk as they try to move both away from insecurity and then ultimately, we hope, back towards their own communities and land. Explosive ordnance impedes the realization of durable solutions to internal displacement, and that is why today we have the pleasure of hearing from the UN Secretary General's Special Advisor on Solutions to Internal Displacement, Mr. Robert Piper. Mr. Piper has 30 plus years of experience in development, humanitarian response, and peace building at the United Nations. Throughout his career, he has continuously fostered collaboration and created linkages across these sectors. And that is why when we called him to say, we've heard of your agenda and we really believe we are integral to it, he had already had that same thought and was very excited to incorporate mine action into his priority agenda and didn't hesitate to accept our invitation. Mr. Piper, the floor is yours.
So thank you, Eileen, Ambassador Gerber, Ambassador Toscano, ASG Zuev, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this very kind invitation to join you and to share some thoughts on where our worlds intersect, in particular around finding solutions for internally displaced persons. I want to congratulate UNMAS, Eileen Cohen, the national directors and partners in the room today for the remarkable work that you have already done over the years to help IDPs return home or to resettle safely. From clearing landmines to providing explosive ordnance risk education to communities in South Sudan, Libya, Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Iraq, Syria, and many more countries, your collective work has truly helped tens of thousands of people to return home, children to return to school, and whole communities to feel secure. All done hand in hand with national and local authorities. The annual report speaks for itself, and it is a testament to the hard work and results of many people in this room. In 1991, I spent 3 extraordinary years in Cambodia with UNDP, accompanying one of the most ambitious and I think successful transitions to peace, and one that tested the UN's ability to accompany such a transition in new ways. The UN Transitional Authority in Cambodia, UNTAC, and a host of partners like Norwegian People's Aid, Halo Trust, Handicap International, the Mine Action Group, threw themselves into what we first saw as a mine clearance challenge, until we realized that clearance in the Cambodia context was wildly beyond any of our career lifespans, and that only the government of Cambodia could address sustainably over maybe the 100 years it would take to get the job done. Mine clearance morphed into a more holistic mine action, and I spent a large part of it, 2 years of my time in Phnom Penh, working alongside UN peacekeepers and NGOs and the government itself to help in the setup of the Cambodian Mine Action Center under government leadership and funded under a UNDP-administered trust fund in the wake of the peacekeepers' departure. I was stunned at the courage and the professionalism of Cambodian and international personnel working in this field. And I was shattered by the realization that the scourge of EO contamination generally would remain a reality for decades and decades in so many countries such as Cambodia, Laos, Afghanistan, and elsewhere. And that landmines would place a massive brake on Cambodia's economic development for years to come. In Cambodia, we saw the impact of landmines very directly on the dangers faced by Cambodian communities in all corners of the country and by the 200,000 returning refugees that were coming back from the Thai border to resettle and for whom agricultural mine-free land was desperately needed, as it is today for millions of IDPs around the world. In the 30 years since I served in the UN in Cambodia, I have worked mostly in countries coming out of civil wars or upheavals of some kind and trying to help them in their transition to peace. The focus of my work today is on one key group that are a powerful illustration of the cost of war, yet very often overlooked, the internally displaced. Over 71 million people are internally displaced in their own countries today, forced to flee their homes due to climate, violence, conflict, disasters, or perhaps some toxic combination of all of the above. IDPs are amongst the most vulnerable people on the planet. On almost any socioeconomic indicator, they trail their fellow citizens, sometimes from a great distance. Yet they are largely invisible to the general public, to many governments, to many policymakers. And displacement is increasingly not a temporary affair, but typically has become a protracted state of transition. We are working with millions of people who've been displaced for 10, even 20 plus years. And of great concern is that these numbers are escalating dramatically. From 51 million IDPs just 3 years ago, we registered 71 million IDPs around the world at the end of 2022. And while climate is increasingly a driver of displacement, conflict still remains the primary driver of protracted displacement. 62.5 million of the 71 million IDPs today were displaced due to conflict. It's no coincidence, therefore, that many of the countries with the highest numbers of internally displaced people also have the high levels of explosive ordnance contamination. Countries such as Ukraine, Afghanistan, Yemen are all high on our list of countries of concern. This acts as a driver of displacement, a deterrence against returning home, and poses a significant risk, of course, to people on the move, as well as the host community. The issue of displacement and the scourge of EO contamination are inextricably linked, therefore. The UN Secretary General has made it a priority to reverse this dramatic rising trend in internal displacement by reducing new displacement, by managing better displacements when we fail to prevent, and especially by finding pathways to move more displaced persons out of their displacement so that protracted displacement becomes the exception rather than the norm. A high-level panel commissioned by the SG to work on this made a raft of recommendations in 2021. The panel insisted we raise the visibility of this group of vulnerable people that is too easily lost in the crowd, that we get more effective at prevention, and that we move more quickly from a response footing to a solutions footing. Protracted displacement cannot be allowed to become normal. To allow a family to be in displacement for a year is too much. A decade is an outrage. And for that, the panel concluded, there is no other way than by having governments in the driving seat. Others can and must assist, but only governments, national, regional, local, can provide the security to direct the necessary resources, mobilize the necessary actors to make solutions stick. The panel questioned, therefore, why this issue of displacement had been left largely to the humanitarian system to manage alone, when displacement is clearly not a short-term phenomenon, when displacement solutions require long-term sustained investments. The panel called on the development system and the peace and security system to engage in this issue as well, and it called on all of government, all of society approach to reverse these trends. Everyone has a role and everyone has a responsibility. Does some of this sound familiar to the Mine Action community? better prevention, government leadership, integration into development efforts. I think we're talking the same language. From the high-level panel, we launched a UN action agenda on internal displacement with 31 commitments by the UN. I'm pleased to say that UNMAS is committed to being an integral part of that action agenda, in particular around the development of these whole-of-government strategies on accountability to displaced persons, in pursuing development financing towards solutions, better data, better protection, and laying the foundation early for solutions. The role of my office is to coordinate these commitments, and especially to develop new approaches to solutions, to move more IDPs out of their displacement faster, through government leadership, member state engagement, mobilizing different actors, including the World Bank and other financial institutions, to bring them in much more systematically. We have identified 16 pilot countries that we think are conducive to test new approaches and draw lessons in order to build a new solutions model. They are Afghanistan, CAR, Chad, Colombia, Ethiopia, Iraq, Libya, Mozambique, Niger, Nigeria, Philippines, Somalia, South Sudan, Sudan, Vanuatu, and Yemen. We think across these countries, we can aim to place up to 10 million IDPs on solutions pathways. And I'm delighted that UNMAS is already working in 11 of the 16. I'm delighted because we need to work closely together in these 16 countries and beyond. In most of our pilot countries, explosive ordnance are a fundamental barrier to solutions. Solutions require safety, livelihoods, unfettered access to services like schools and health services. And while communities of return or integration or resettlement remain profoundly affected by EO contamination, solutions will simply remain elusive. We count on your work to help these communities find a way of living alongside this risk, while the long-term task of removing the risk altogether continues for the decades ahead. From our side, we will continue to ensure that mine action strategies and investments are a part of our framework on solutions to end displacement. From your side, we need to see that displacement solutions are similarly prioritized in national mine action strategies, so that when limited resources are looking for priorities, we can combine forces to advance both mine action and solutions at the same time and in the same location. Together, we need to ensure that both our mine action and solution efforts are an integral part of a nation's development plan, and that this work is reflected in the investments on the Sustainable Development Goals, commitments to leave no one behind, and so forth. We also need to join forces on the prevention side. EO contamination are a well-established driver of displacement and a barrier to solutions. Your collective work in advocating against the use of EOs is crucial. The voices of the mine action directors are surely the most credible on the international stage vis-a-vis the imperative of a preventive agenda, of the need to comply with the Ottawa Treaty. You can speak for the victims in ways that no one else can. Beyond our 16 pilot countries, wherever we are dealing with internal displacement, UN country teams are ramping up their efforts on solutions, prevention, and response, empowered by the Secretary General's action agenda, which applies, of course, to all countries in this room and beyond. Even if you are not on our list of pilot countries, your UN country team is very much ready to talk and collaborate. Please take a look at the SG's action agenda, maybe get UNMAS's advice on how they see their role, and go and knock on the door of your UN resident coordinator to make sure that mine action is not overlooked. I will do my part with Eileen to make sure the right signals are also sent at the global level. Thank you again for this opportunity. Thank you for what you do. It's extraordinary, truly extraordinary and important. And I wish you well for the days ahead. Thank you very much.